Thank you so much, Prabhuji. After an introduction like that, even I'm interested in what I have to say. Thank you so much. Well, what can I say? It's an honor to be with all of you. I hope you're okay. You're not in the sun, you have some shade. Please get underneath the gazebo. We don't want anyone having heat stroke. It's a real honor to be here in Dallas. I came to US in '94 as a kid. All I remember is Disney World, Universal Studios, and so it's nice to come back again and visit all of the tirthas where Srila Prabhupada implanted Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada had a special love for the USA. When he would speak about America, he would say, yes, America, that's where I began. And so it really is a blessed country, and so we've come to take the blessings, and we've come to meet all of you, so many dedicated devotees who in your own ways have done incredible things for Srila Prabhupada. We've come to learn from you, to be inspired by you, and you thankfully allow us to do some service for you by sharing. Today's topic is taking anxiety for Krishna, and my main anxiety is I'm speaking to devotees who are more established than me. But we will discover and explore this topic of taking anxiety for Krishna, and let us see what we can draw from this to take our spiritual lives forward. And it will be I'll share you some of my thoughts, and then I'll be happy to hear from all of you and be nourished by your realizations as well. So thank you very much. It's my deep honor to be here with you today. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki. Taking anxiety for Krishna. Put your hand up if you want more anxiety in your life. I don't think anyone in this world will invite anxiety into their life. In fact, we want to go to Vaikuntha, the place where there is no anxiety. So why on earth are we having a topic here called taking anxiety for Krishna? It's interesting. although Goloka is known as Vaikuntha, the place of no anxiety, there is much transcendental anxiety happening there. Mother Yashoda is in transcendental anxiety. The gopis are in transcendental anxiety. Maybe at any point Krishna could leave, unreliable person. The gopas are in anxiety. Everyone in Vrindavan is in anxiety, but it's all transcendental. But here in the material world, our life is already full of so many material anxieties. And therefore the idea of taking anxiety for Krishna doesn't always seem so palatable. Today what I want to share with you is that we may not look for anxiety deliberately in our spiritual life. Maybe we are not there. But there's one beautiful thing that we should look for in our life. But when you achieve this one thing, then anxiety will come. But this one thing, from my experience of spiritual life, is what really makes our Krishna consciousness transform. When I came to this movement, I was fortunate to grow up in Bhaktivedanta Manor. And there are so many illustrious devotees. And I tried to understand what is the common element between each one of these advanced devotees. And I came to one conclusion. That each one of these devotees who became very established in Krishna consciousness, their one common quality was that they all took a responsibility for Krishna. But when you take a responsibility, then you get anxiety. And if you don't believe me, ask any mom and dad, isn't it? Or ask any temple president. Or ask anyone who takes some kind of responsibility for some service. So responsibility is something the devotees were always sharing with me. I'll share with you something. When I first came to the youth group, you know, when you're a young person, every young person thinks they know it all, you know. And so I said, no, you should do this like this. I was becoming like the master strategist for them, you know, like I had the idea of how everything could improve. And so I was telling them, you should do this, you should do that. If you do it like this, it will be amazing. And then one devotee said, let me tell you a story. So I'm going to read that story because you have to get it right. I keep this on my phone to this day. I was giving them all ideas and he said, let me tell you a story. It's a story about 4 people named everybody, somebody, anybody, and nobody. I said, this sounds like an interesting story. He said, let me tell you the story. There was an important job to be done and everybody was asked to do it. Everybody was sure that somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry about that because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought anybody could do it, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't do it. It ended up that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. So then I said, okay, I'll keep my mouth shut now. Yes, when Srila Prabhupada came to America, then some of his contemporaries were saying anybody could have done it. And then Prabhupada, he told the story of Christopher Columbus. You know this story? Christopher Columbus had discovered America and he had come back and there was a group of explorers And the explorers said, anybody could have done it. You just sailed in one direction, anybody could have done it. And then Christopher Columbus, he brought out an egg. Wasn't following the 4 eggs, of course. And then he said, I want one of you to stand this egg on its head. How do you stand an egg on its head? It's oval. So everyone was baffled. And then Christopher Columbus, he came to the front and he just went pop. And he popped the top of the egg and he stood it up. And then he looked at everyone and said, anybody could have done it, but I have done it. So Prabhupada also said, anybody could have done it. Prabhupada in his deep humility said, I'm not anyone special. I simply followed the orders of my Guru Maharaj. I simply took that responsibility. Mahaprabhu said, Pritivite achayata nagaradigram sarvatra prachara hoibe moranam. My name will go everywhere. Once Srila Prabhupada told one of his contemporaries, some fool who has complete conviction in the order of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, some fool, he will do it. And then he said to the devotee, but it won't be you. So this responsibility, taking responsibility for Krishna's service, is something which is everyone's birthright. Each one of us can take some responsibility for this movement, some responsibility for some part of Srila Prabhupada's transcendental mission. And when we do that, it's not always easy. There is anxiety. One of the devotees, he had gone to Vrindavan to do the construction work in India. Good luck. Good luck. So he was trying to get the materials. That was a struggle. Even when he got all the cement materials, it was a struggle. He had to sleep there, keeping watch every night. Then there was always problems of money, Lakshmi. And then one time Srila Prabhupada came and he said, Prabhupada, I'm in Vrindavan. And I'm going around and there's all these rickshaw drivers and everyone and they are just Radhe, Radhe. And I am thinking, Rupee, Rupee. And Prabhupada said, you have to take the anxiety. You have to take the responsibility. Because first, yes, Rupee, Rupee for Krishna's service. And then Vishaya, Chadiya, Shuddhe, Hobe Man. Maybe then the heart becomes purified by service and we can really see Vrindavan, see Krishna. So the Bhagavatam is incredible because in the Bhagavatam we're basically seeing people who just took anxiety for Krishna because they took responsibility for Krishna. Priyavrata was in the forest. He was having a great time. He had no anxieties. And then all the eminent personalities came to him and said, we want you to become the ruler, the king. He was like, no, 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 I'm here, I'm having a great time, I'm in the forest, no anxieties. And they said, no, you have to do it for service. You have to take on the anxiety for service. There's a beautiful verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Pragada premera e swabhavachar nija dukha vigna dira nakore vichar. Pragada premera e swabhavachar. The very nature of someone who has prema, love for Krishna. The nature. How will you know someone has love for Krishna? Nija dukha vigna dira nakore vichar. When it comes to doing service for Krishna, they don't consider any difficulty, any impediment, any anxiety. They immediately take it up because their love impels them to serve, take responsibility, even if it's difficult. And therefore it's difficult. It's difficult, as I said. Brother once asked Srila Prabhupada, one temple president asked him, what is the duty of what is the service description of a temple president? Prabhupada said, if something goes wrong, it's your fault. I said, wow, I don't know if I want that one, you know. I mean, to convince someone to take up responsibility is not easy, you know, it's not easy. Apparently there was one guru and he wanted his disciple to become a temple president. So he knew there would be some, you know, pushback. So the temple president was a, you know, newly married grihasta, you know, many responsibilities. So Prabhupada, the guru thought, I don't know. So you know what the guru did? He called him into the room. He said, I want to have a conversation with you. So already the disciple was thinking, oh my God, you know, I mean, when the guru calls you in. So he was coming in very, very nervous. And then the guru looked at him and said, I want you to take up a service. And he's thinking, oh no, what now responsibility am I going to get? And then the guru said, I want you to take sannyas. He said, sannyas, oh my God, like this is way beyond what I was thinking. So he said, I nearly left my body, you know, like I was circumambulating the fan on the top, you know, I'm a new grihasta, I take sannyas. And then, so he was like, and then the guru looked at him and he said, he said, okay, the guru said, it's okay, you don't need to take sannyas, just become the temple president. He said, I'll do anything. I'll do anything. Krishna Bhakta Bada Chatu, you know, Krishna's devotees are very intelligent, they know how to get things done. So he became the president. So Priyavrata didn't want to take that responsibility, but he took it for service. Brahmaji took the responsibility to manage the whole universe. I mean, what was the first thing he did? Tapa, tapa. This is the first lesson for anyone who takes a responsibility. Like sometimes they give you a service in the Hare Krishna temple and then you say, where's the funds? Tapa. You have to do the austerity. Where's the manpower? Tapa. You know, where's the team? Tapa. So when you take up a responsibility, you have to do austerity. It's interesting, when Brahma then had to populate the universe, then who were the first ones to appear? The 4 Kumaras, isn't it? So Brahmaji, his whole body is made of intelligence, he has the 4 Kumaras, and then he tells the Kumaras, isn't it? I want you to procreate. I've been given the service by Krishna directly. Tene Brahma Rida Ya Adi Kavaya. Krishna told me to populate, so you have to help me. And what did they say? No can do. No can do. No, but I was directly instructed by Krishna. You're my sons. My whole body is made of intelligence. How you can doubt my instruction? No, I'm sorry. We are remaining brahmacharis. So sometimes when we take up a responsibility, we think, but Prabhu, no one's listening to me. There's no cooperation. One time I was working under one devotee and he said, Prabhupada said, your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate together. So now you should cooperate with me. I said, I'm not sure that's exactly the purport here. But it's like that, Brahmaji, isn't it? Like, he was not getting cooperation. It's not easy when you take responsibility. And even when Brahmaji had made the whole universe, 14 planetary systems, 8.4 million species of life, I mean, it was amazing. And even then, someone came and criticized him. Do you remember who? Because the gopis came and said, Brahma, you did a terrible job. So why? Because you made eyes which have eyelids, and those eyelids flicker for a moment, and when those eyelids flicker, we can't see Krishna. So you made a big blunder. Of course, it was a very transcendental criticism. But be ready, when you take up a responsibility, someone will have something to say. Someone will have some, Prabhu, I have some feedback for you. Really? Maybe tomorrow, not today. Not today. I'm not, let me chant more rounds. It's not easy. Prahlad, in the 7th canto, what does he say? Nevo dvijay parataratya virturanya vairas tvadvirya gayana mahamrita magna chitta sochaitato vimukha chaitasa indriyartha maya sukhaya bharamudvahato vimudhan. Prahlad says, I'm okay. I'm happy. I'm with Krishna. But he said, I don't want to go to the mountains alone and just look after my own spiritual life. So chaitato, because I'm constantly thinking about all the people that are suffering here. What about them? Will I just go alone and look after my own benefit? Vimukha. And just be selfish? I have to do something. I have to do something to serve, to make a contribution. What a beautiful mood. Lord Shiva, in the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam, who's churning the milk ocean? The demigods and the demons. And when the poison comes out, then that poison has the power to threaten the whole universal balance. And then what does Lord Shiva do? He drinks it. And there's a very, very beautiful verse. Tapyante lokatapena sadhavo prayasojana paramaradhanam tadhi purushasya khilatmanaha. Lord Shiva is glorified. Tapyante lokatapena, to take on suffering, to take on anxiety. Sadhavo prayasojana, to remove the anxiety of others. This is what the great personalities do. Paramaradhanam tadhi. There's no higher way of worshipping Krishna than doing this. That's amazing. The Bhagavatam says the highest way to worship Krishna is to take on responsibility and anxiety in the service of others. And if we do that, Krishna becomes so pleased. Srila Prabhupada becomes so pleased. In the beginning of our spiritual life, we're asking, what can I get from Krishna? How can Krishna solve my problems? But later on in spiritual life, when we actually become mature, then we go in front of Krishna and say, what can I give you? What can I do? What can I offer? At the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna, Ma suchaha, don't worry. But in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu's most confidential devotee, Haridas Thakur, is coming to Chaitanya Dev and is saying, Prabhu, chinta na kariha. Mahaprabhu, you don't worry. You don't be anxiety. We are going to take on the anxiety to remove your anxiety. In the beginning, we're thinking, how will I trust Krishna? How will I have faith in Krishna? But when we become mature, we think, how can I live my life? How can I carry myself in such a way that Krishna will have trust in me? That Guru will have trust in me? Here we are in Dallas, and we can't forget His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who Srila Prabhupada had so much faith in. When Srila Prabhupada had some difficult task, then he would call Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Because Maharaj had lived his life in such a way that the Guru had faith in him, that the Guru could count on him, that he was ready to take any responsibility. And therefore Srila Prabhupada would call him to do the most difficult things. Imagine in our life if we could be like that. That we become so strong, so resilient, so dedicated and responsible, that when Srila Prabhupada and his followers have some great task they have to achieve, then your name comes to mind. That would be amazing. So we are all here in this room, in this garden. The garden of opportunity. We all have the opportunity to take a risk for Krishna. Yesterday we were in Silicon Valley and we had a program with all the kids. And so we were asking all the kids, what risk do you want to take for Krishna? What amazing thing do you want to do for Krishna? And then one kid put his hand up and said, I want to make a virtual temple for Krishna. I was like, this is definitely a Silicon Valley kid. You know? He said, that's my risk. I said, when you make it, I'll risk coming into that temple. So it was very nice. They were all ready to take different risks for Krishna. All of you, the young generation, you're here. What risk are you going to take for Krishna? What amazing thing. It's an adventure. See, Srila Prabhupada, he never taught Krishna consciousness as a movement of rules and regulations. No, this is a movement of adventure, excitement. You're going to go out there in the world and you're going to change people's lives. You're going to go out there in the world and touch people's hearts. When I was young, I wanted an adventure. And then when I joined the Hare Krishna movement, I realized there's not one dull day in this movement. You don't know what's going to happen next. Anything could happen. But one thing is for sure, it's never boring. Because there's always something amazing to do. So we have to make sure. In London we grew up with His Holiness Shivaram Maharaj. And you know, Shivaram Maharaj is very, what can I say? He's heavy. He's you know, and he has a deep voice. And once I asked him, I said, Maharaj, can you give me an instruction? And he looked at me in his deep voice and he said, don't be boring. He said, don't be boring. Do something. Take a responsibility. You see, this is a movement of miracles. Miracles happened in the past. Miracles are happening now. And you know what? The greatest miracles are yet to come. If someone tells you Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes took place 500 years ago, you can fold your hands and tell them, Prabhu, I have to humbly submit. You're wrong. Adyapiha Shai Leela Kaha Gaura Roy Kona Kona Bhagyavan Dekhi Bara Boy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are going on even today. Kona Kona Bhagyavan. But are you fortunate? Have you been blessed? Have you placed yourself in the mercy flow? Then Dekhi Bara Boy, you'll be able to see all the amazing things of this movement before you. So the great opportunity that Srila Prabhupada gave us is the opportunity to take some responsibility for some part of his movement. And it doesn't matter, small or big. Who are we anyway? We're all small. One time one devotee said, oh no, Prabhupada, but he's a big devotee. Prabhupada said, big devotee? Narad Muni is big devotee. So we're all actually very small. But we have the opportunity to take a part of Prabhupada's movement. I grew up in the manor, and in the manor I witnessed devotees. They were amazing. They all took a part of Srila Prabhupada's movement and they said, I'm going to be responsible for this. I don't know if you've ever heard of Mother Kalangana. Have you ever heard? She was famous for her Mangal Arti sweets. So every day she would not start cooking for Krishna till she had done 16 rounds. So every day she was up 1 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I was coming back from a program, ready to hit the sack, and she was already up. And for over 40 years, she made these incredible Mangalacharana sweets, hand painted, every single one, done with incredible love. She used to have an apron, and on the apron it said, Krishna's little helper. It was very nice. And she was a real mother, and very encouraging, very loving. And she just took that responsibility that Krishna must get his sweets every single day. Hell or high water, it must happen. We have another devotee, his name is Prayojana Prabhu. And you know what responsibility he took? He took the responsibility that Krishna's toilets should be sparkling. So he was the toilet cleaner for over 20 years. And I tell you, he had a system for cleaning the toilets that was more complicated than doing a yagya. You know, like he had this whole chart. Like when you make up the mop bucket, then it's like 10 milliliters of this and 1 milliliter of that, and do that first, and then the temperature of the water has to be this much. I mean, it was serious business. It wasn't just like, oh, it's a toilet, we clean it. This was serious business. Because these are not just any toilets. These are the toilets in Krishna's temple, which will be used by Krishna's devotees. It was serious. There was one great devotee in Vrindavan, his name was Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, you may know. He had taken up the responsibility of cooking all of Krishna Balaram's offerings. His cooking was so amazing, Srila Prabhupada told him, you can just cook all day, you don't even need to chant your 16 rounds. You just keep cooking. He was the only one who got that. Sometimes I wish I got that instruction. And then one time he became very sick in his old age, so he couldn't cook anymore. And you know what he decided to do in Vrindavan? He said, I'll take the responsibility of handing out Charanamrit to all the guests. So there he was, giving out the Charanamrit every single day. And I mean, he did it with such devotion, with such seriousness. He took it. This is my responsibility. So everyone takes a responsibility for Krishna. And yes, there is anxiety. But that anxiety is very, very beautiful, because that anxiety helps us to focus our mind on Krishna. The reality is, in this world, you can't escape anxiety. So if you don't take anxiety for Krishna, the anxiety, dear friends, is going to come in some other way, shape or form. It has to come. So better take an anxiety for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada knew we didn't have the capacity to just go to Vrindavan and chant 64 rounds and just be absorbed. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada gave us so many opportunities to serve this movement and take responsibility. I guess in our movement it's becoming now like a generational shift. His Grace Burijan Prabhu said, the next decade will be the decade of tears. Because so many of Srila Prabhupada's most stalwart followers, devotees who have dedicated their whole lives to this movement, maybe will be bereft of their association. But when we look at what they've done to help us to be where we are today, then that gratitude that we have for them, for Srila Prabhupada, should translate into a heightened responsibility. And that's how a movement goes on. Because every generation has gratitude for the previous generation, and therefore they make a sacrifice. And when they make that sacrifice, the next generation then looks up to them and sees their sacrifice and feels deep gratitude, and then they make a sacrifice. and then gratitude, sacrifice. And that's how a movement goes on. In Sanskrit, the word for gratitude is kritagya. It's a very beautiful word. Krita means that which is done, and gya means to know. If we actually know what has been done for us, then we're grateful. We were just in New York and we were retracing Srila Prabhupada's footsteps in 1965. In the Lower East Side, in the Skid Row, the lowest of the low, the 94, rat-ridden Bowery, full of alcoholics, dropouts, acid heads. Srila Prabhupada descended there. His Grace Brahmananda Prabhu was once giving a class and speaking about Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan. And then one person put their hand up and said, Brahmananda Prabhu, to us it seems like for you Srila Prabhupada is God. And Brahmananda Prabhu, he said, no, we made that mistake at one point. And then he paused and then he said, but nowadays, I think Srila Prabhupada is greater than God. Because Srila Prabhupada came down to the Lower East Side to save me. And then he just began crying. Prabhupada came down to the Lower East Side to save me. So if we're actually kritagya, if we actually know what has been done for us, we'll know that however much we do in our life will never be enough. But while we have some time, while we have some energy, while we have some space, let us fill it with Krishna. Let us take a responsibility. And yes, there will be anxiety. And yes, there will be obstacles. But what does Bhaktivinoda Thakur say? The obstacles I encounter in my devotional service are the greatest sources of ecstasy. To have the opportunity to take some anxiety for Krishna, some anxiety for Srila Prabhupada, some anxiety for all the great Vaishnavas who came before us, what could be more of a privilege to show that we truly appreciate what they gave to us. So here I am, I'm preaching to myself. Please don't take it like that I've come here to give you a pep talk. But we all have a great opportunity, and so let us take that opportunity while time and energy is there. And in this way, our lives will become beautiful. The yatra will become more and more beautiful. And we'll see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. You'll be participating in it. The Chaitanya Charitamrita hasn't ended. Srila Prabhupada said ISKCON is the latest chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So don't think you are reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You are in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But we have to become alive. We have to become active. We have to become engaged, involved in the greatest movement on earth. So please pray for me that I can follow my words and do something. Time is running out. But hopefully some years are still there to save the day. And together let us do more and more service, take responsibility, take some anxiety, and make our lives beautiful. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So I could speak longer, but I think let me open it up here and maybe see what your thoughts, what your feelings, what your realizations are about responsibility, about anxiety. There are so many established devotees here. In the car on the way here, we were with Mother Chandravali and we were talking about commitment. And just staying in one place and serving for many years. And how beautiful that is. So many of you have shown that commitment, so I'll be happy to hear your realizations and your thoughts. Yes, please. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for this very encouraging presentation and talk. Maharaj, my question is, I heard once in one of your talks that you were saying how 80% of the people in any society are just existing. They're not alive, active. They're existing, they're just there at a mediocre level. And 10% are ready to leave any moment.
On the edge.
On the edge. They can leave. They're just looking for a reason to leave. And then the 10% are the only ones who are actually experiencing, striving, gaining higher realizations and so on. And then with this talk now, I was thinking that to be willing to take anxiety in spiritual life, to take responsibility in spiritual life, I personally feel that the basic or the fundamental quality of enthusiasm is needed. If I'm not enthusiastic in my spiritual life, I will not be willing to do more, take more responsibility, feel anxious. And for that enthusiasm to come in, I can only speak for myself. I feel that my offensive mentality or my offensive nature is not very conducive always to feel that enthusiasm. So it kills. Offenses are the killers of enthusiasm. So if in the first place, if I'm not always feeling enthusiastic, then how can I make that step towards taking responsibility and anxiety and taking that personal endeavor to do something more?
Yes, thank you so much for your question. Yes, how can we develop that enthusiasm? Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Flickering. Utsaha mai, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. Well, what can I say? Like when we live with Vaishnav culture, when we live with etiquette, when we try to stay free from offenses, then we protect whatever inspiration we have gained. That is very, very important, as you have mentioned. Let me just bring it to a very practical point that I've experienced in my life. Please forgive me, sometimes I talk about my life and my, it's not like... But I feel it helps if I speak from experience. Most of the time, I saw that I didn't want to do things. But then, there was some great Vaishnav who I loved. And because they told me to do it, because they pushed me, because they said, no, you should do this. I said, okay, well, what to do? Then I'll do it. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he had gone to the communist countries distributing books. And then he had come back to see Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada called him into the room. Prabhupada was so happy. Prabhupada began rubbing his head. He said, you have become so dear to my Guru Maharaj. You have taken such a risk. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was crying. And then Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he said, Prabhupada, we only did it because you pushed us. And Prabhupada said, yes, my Guru Maharaj pushed me. I am pushing you. And you will also push others. And just as one carriage pulls another carriage, then they all go back home, back to Godhead. We need to let a Vaishnav in our life who will push us. That's my practical. It's like when you go on a Mumbai train. It's impossible to get out of the train. It's like it's packed. But somehow or other, if you maneuver yourself to the right position in the train, then what happens is, as it reaches the station, the crowd is moving. And you don't need to move your legs, Baba. You're going with the crowd. Place yourself in the mercy flow. You have to find some great Vaishnav who's running to Krishna. And then, what does Bhaktivinoda Thakur says? Krishna se tomar, Krishna dite paro, tomara shakati ache, dhai tava pache pache, I'm running behind you. Prabhupada said, hold on to my dhoti. I got the back door key to the spiritual world. So I think that's one major aspect. Srila Prabhupada was pushed by his spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada pushed his disciples. And then Srila Prabhupada's disciples, they lived it. Let us be pushed by them, by those great followers. And it is enthusiastic. See, the thing is, once you get into it, the enthusiasm comes. But it's just getting that initial push, isn't it? Like when you wake up in the morning, it's like the horror, the horror of the alarm clock. One devotee used to say to me, the distance between the material world and the spiritual world is the distance between your sleeping bag and the bathroom when the alarm clock goes off. If you can make that journey, you'll make that journey. So it's hard. The beginning is always hard. Like there are different doshas like Pitta, Vata and Kapha. So like some people are like Kapha, you understand? Like earth. They are like, to get them moving, it takes a lot, to get them moving. But once they're moving, you can't stop them. The momentum is going. So it's kind of like that. You got to find a habitat in which it gets you moving. So surround yourself with sincere people. Surround yourself in a place where something's happening, and then get into it. And Prabhupada said to Vishnujan Maharaj, who said, Prabhupada, sometimes I don't feel enthusiastic to dance in the kirtan. And what did Prabhupada tell him? Dance anyway. And when you dance, the enthusiasm will come. So yes, we can't keep trying to analyze it and work it out in the head. I tried that many times. And then I realized, you know what? I just got to get out there and start doing something. And of course, you are already doing. The Vaishnavas are very dangerous. I call them the agents of Vamandev. Just 3 steps and they take over everything. When we were doing fundraising, I was learning fundraising. So then I went to, I was following around the best fundraisers. And then one of them told me, he said, the key is just make friends. And when you ask for something, don't ask for anything small. When you ask for something big. That's like, you guys are very tricky, And then later on with my spiritual master, I felt as though it was the same thing. In the beginning, he was so relaxed. Yeah, no problem. I used to drive him in cars. I used to see the vehicles I used to drive him in. One of them caught fire. One of them was like a Micra, tiny vehicle, like all these Sankirtan vans. But he was always very, no problem, it's okay. And I thought, I got the best spiritual master. He has no demands. He's so easygoing. Everyone is anxiety, I'm just... And then he started asking. But by that time we were conquered. So then you couldn't say no. So we have to become conquered by the Vaishnavas. Okay, sorry, I'm being a bit long-winded here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you so much for a beautiful talk, and not just today, Maharaj, but all your talks are so inspiring and encouraging. and it's really helped me personally. So I just wanted to express my gratitude for that. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you so much.
And I have a question. So you said we have to take anxiety for Krishna, to take responsibility for, taking up service for him. So anxiety is generally the nature of our mind, and we have preoccupied anxiety about relationships, about life, about so many things. So how do we increase anxiety for Krishna and choose that anxiety in our life? It seems like a very simple thing when I ask right now, but when we go back and we serve with people and we just go back in our normal life, it's hard to consciously choose because you're so filled up with so many thoughts and just questions popping up. So nobody's there at the moment to guide your mind, you just are left alone. So how do we consciously choose taking anxiety for Krishna?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Beautiful question. Yes. Yes, we don't want you to also be kamikaze. Now I'm just going to take on the world. Because maybe we will not be able to manage. In our life, we try to create a peaceful situation as much as possible. That's why we have Varnashram. It's good to be in a stable situation. It's good to have stability in one's finances, stability in one's relationships, stability in one's material life. Yes, we try to build that stability, and therefore then our mind is more free, and then we can give ourselves more. So the first thing I'd like to say is that as we talk about taking on anxiety for Krishna, yes, it's nice to build a stable life, that's important. But let us not feel that that's the goal, that's just the platform. The second thing I would say is that when taking anxiety, again, don't frame it as taking anxiety, frame it as taking responsibility. Frame it that this is a great opportunity. Frame it that this is a great offering. Frame it that from this, I will come face to face with Srila Prabhupada. I'll come face to face with Krishna. Once Kadamba Maharaj was giving a talk, he had joined the movement in 1978, and so one person said, how does it feel for you? You just missed Srila Prabhupada. And he said, I don't know how it feels because I feel like I'm meeting Srila Prabhupada every day in service. I read Srila Prabhupada's books. I think about Srila Prabhupada's orders. I know more about Srila Prabhupada than I know about my own father. We meet our acharyas in responsibility. So frame it not so much as taking anxiety, but frame it as taking responsibility. And then the anxiety that comes doesn't look the same way. And the third thing, as I would say, is just have good devotees around you so that you can take measured responsibilities, you can take measured anxieties, so that they can tell you, yes, you can do a little bit more, or maybe you're taking on too much. So then we have that check and balance to make sure that we don't break, So when we have that support, then it's very, very nice. So yes, and I feel when you take anxiety for Krishna, your other problems actually begin to diminish. Have you ever had that? It's like when you get absorption, then problems seem to diminish. Once there was a big high-rise flat, so the people on the higher floors, they complained to the owner. They said, this lift is going too slow. Call in the engineer and speed it up. So he said, yeah, just give me a week. He didn't call in an engineer. He called in a carpenter. And in the lift, he put a big mirror. And then I come back after 1 week, and those people came and say, brilliant engineer, the lift is flying now, like we're up there before we even know it. Why? Because when you go in the lift and there's a mirror, and then mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the absorbed? Then it flies. Then everything seems to disappear. Absorption is what we need. Dear friends, there's no solutions in the material world, but there is the opportunity of absorption. So don't try to create a solution, but try to embody absorption. And then maybe, just maybe, you might find that all of those things, my brothers, uncles, aunts, wife, daughter-in-law who gives me a funny look every time I see her, maybe it won't seem as important anymore because we are absorbed in something higher. So yes, that is what we are trying to do. I see many hands, but...
Hi Krishna.
Okay, yes.
Thank you so much for this class and for being here. I have two questions, if the devotees will be so merciful. You talk about taking risks, right? And from what I can understand, right, advancing in spiritual life is just a sequence of taking risks, greater and greater ones. And if you'd be willing to share, what would you say what was a risk that was perhaps a turning point in your devotional life and your advancement in spirituality, and what did that bring you? Like, how did that shift things for you?
Okay, yes. Well, I grew up in a Gujarati family. You know where this story is going. And therefore there are three options in life: doctor, lawyer, or failure. No, I'm not joking. It wasn't that simplistic. But naturally, my family had many aspirations for me. At the same time, I had a calling. Srila Prabhupada's life, his story changed my whole perception of the world, what my future should be. And so, yes, when I was 21, I had to make that decision. And it was tough. It was difficult. Because on one hand, you have all these amazing people in your life who you want to please. And then on another hand, you have an inner calling which you feel you need to follow. And so it was a real turbulent time in my life. And somehow or other, by Krishna's mercy, he instilled me with that strength to follow my calling despite all the obstacles, and join the movement as a brahmachari at that time. And taking that risk, I think, transformed my life. Because when you take a risk, you feel the presence of Krishna. When you take a risk, you get that strong conviction, rakshishyati ti vishvasho, that Krishna is always protecting. And so, it gave me a lot of deep realizations then in my future to try to take more risks for Krishna. Of course, how many risks have I taken? I haven't done so much. So I guess that was the one which really transformed my life very early on. And it really helped me because through that challenge, I had to really go deep and ask myself, why am I doing this? I'm causing people so much anxiety. But I had to go deep in my heart and understand, why am I doing this? And when that why was clarified, then any practical risk became easy. One philosophy, he says, when your why is strong enough, you can take on any how and what. But your why has to be very strong. So that whole challenge and taking that risk helped me to solidify my why. And my mum and dad are happy now. They lived happily ever after. For all of the parents out there feeling heartbroken. So yes, once it was so sweet, my mother, she came to me and she said, "Can't you just be normal?" I said, "It's too late." It's too late. And then I read a quote by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He said, "Those who are now considered normal accept the values and principles of an insane world." So we don't want to be normal. If someone tells you, "Oh, you're a bit abnormal," you should feel, "Yeah, I'm doing well." I don't want to be normal. So be brave. Columbus says you can't discover what's on the horizon until you're ready to sail away from the shore. Look at all the great devotees in our movement. They took such a risk. I look at whatever is tiny compared to how much they did. But those who take a risk for Krishna see Krishna the closest. There's a beautiful video, you can watch it, of Shyam Sundar Prabhu. And he's talking about when they were first at Berry Place in London. And he talks about, in this interview, he says, we didn't know where our next week of rent was coming from, where our next... And then he said at one point, it was just like we didn't have any money and he was about to evict us. He said we walked down into the street and he said out of nowhere there were just notes of money flying. And he said we looked in all directions and there wasn't one person in sight. But he said there was just money. And he said we just caught whatever we could catch. And he said it was enough to pay the rent. And in that interview he said, Prabhupada told us, if you take a risk for Krishna, Krishna has to help you. And he said, we tested that to the max. And then in this interview he says, but that spirit has died down. He said, we've lost it. Maybe we've lost a little bit of that spirit. So yeah, let's do it. We can do it together. It's easier to take a risk when you do it together, isn't it? It's like if you have to jump into like a cold swimming pool or something. It's like, okay, we'll do it together. And then everyone's like, okay, together. And then one person jumps and everyone stops. He's looking back thinking, I jumped. You guys were all supposed to do it together. But if we do it together, you can do amazing things. If you build a sangha in which everyone is ready to do it, you can start doing amazing things. I saw it. We would do marathons and I saw on Sankirtan teams like 4 book distributors together, and when they were all like, okay, sky's the limit, we can do anything, then they would like inspire each other to do like incredible things. I mean unspeakable things. So we have to generate that atmosphere, that sangha. That's how this movement spread. The Hare Krishna explosion. Of course, Prabhupada's presence created such an energy. Some thoughts.
I don't know how to choose. How do you choose where it goes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much. Quick question I have is that, is it ethical if you feel like basic duties like chanting 16 rounds is like a responsibility? Does that mean you're not doing it wholeheartedly? Because it has to come from your mind, right? Like it shouldn't be like obligation.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so is it bad when we do things and we don't really feel like doing it, but we do it as an obligation? You see, like first, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there are different levels of relationship with God. The lowest level is bhaya, which means fear. Higher than that is asha. You do something because you want something in return. And then he says higher than that is kartavya, which means to be dutiful. But he says higher than that is prema, love. So to do something out of duty, out of obligation is good. Because yes, every day we don't feel like it. But just by you being committed, that's another exhibition of your love for Krishna. That is love. When you do it and you don't feel like it, it means you have to have some love. Otherwise, why would you do it? So even your obligation is also a demonstration of your love. But then when that love matures more and more, then you do it just because you like doing it. Because you want to offer something to Krishna. In the spiritual world, they sweep the floor even when there's no dust. Imagine that. Because they just want to serve. So yeah, we're getting there. We're not immediately pure devotees. We're on the journey there. But yes, it will come. And you already have some love, for sure. I don't know how we're doing. You just tell me on the time. I don't want to put...
asking on the time.
Oh, time. We are good in time.
You are good in time?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances of glory to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, recently I was watching this video on Prabhupada Memories, where Prabhupada is instructing his disciple that, take up one service and give your life and soul to it.
Yeah.
And your class was somewhat around that. So Maharaj, because around temple, there's so many services. How do we know which is that service to whom I can give my life and soul, Maharaj?
Different devotees do different things. Like I've met some devotees who did one service and then they just stayed with that service for the rest of their lives. Incredible. And I met some devotees who began with one service and that service led them to another service and that service led them to another service. So everyone's different. If you don't know what that one service is, if it doesn't jump out to you, if there's not that one thing that clearly is moving your heart and capturing your consciousness, then begin with something that you have an affinity for. Begin with something that's needed by the temple. And then pray to Krishna. And pray to Krishna's devotees. And through their guidance, they will take you towards where you're meant to serve. So I think it's a journey. And some people, everyone's spiritual life develops and evolves in different ways. So some people are, and our lives change. For 20 years I was at the manor and I just stayed in one place. And nowadays we're moving all the time, constantly. So it's a change. So times change, life changes, responsibilities change. And with changing times, services may change. But always be engaged, always be absorbed. Like I'm saying, don't wait to figure it out in your head. Just get active and do something and then see where it goes from there. Is that okay? Oh, thank you. Oh, it's okay, not necessary. Okay. Yes, Mother, Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, as you're speaking, I'm thinking of so many things that I heard Srila Prabhupada say. And one of them was in a class lecture. He said, the British make the best devotees. Also, as as you're speaking, you're reminding me so many things. Especially there was one letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote. It was around 1973, and he wrote it to all the temples. And he said, "Why do you think I'm asking you to follow the regulative principles and chant 16 rounds?" He said, "I expect this from all of you." He said, "Why?" He said, "So Krishna will be pleased to accept our offerings of food." And he said, "Krishna doesn't have to eat our offerings." He said, "But he accepts love." And he said, "I'm serving my spiritual master, so I'm giving you this order, and then Krishna will accept." So I just wanted to share that, because you're traveling and preaching and doing all of these things, and so it makes us more inspired to follow. So Krishna will eat the offerings, maybe, hopefully.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your kind words, and such a beautiful point. Yes. Yeah, there's a beautiful audio lecture. I don't know if there's a video of it. And Srila Prabhupada is talking first about Vamsidas Babaji, who's worshipping his deities. And then he talks about Madan Mohan. And he talks about the interactions of Sanatana Goswami and how they're lovingly interacting. And then Prabhupada said, don't be proud. Krishna doesn't need anything. But Krishna is giving you an opportunity to serve. And he says the real thing is love. The real thing is devotion. And then he breaks down and he cries. And he says, this is the real thing. So we have an opportunity to express our devotion to Krishna. What can be more valuable? Thank you so much. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I think so by the questions here and answers by Mataji, most of it is answered. But my question was like, when we take responsibilities, and currently our identification is with false ego, these two mixture together is like a very dangerous mixture. How do we be humble and as well as taking responsibility, both of them together? How do we maintain the balance?
In the material world, taking responsibility means climbing the ladder. Srila Prabhupada, he went to Dai Nippon. You know Dai Nippon, the Japanese publishers. And so he met the CEO, and he was sitting across the table from the CEO, and he said, "What's your goal in life?" And you know what the CEO did? He pulled out a stack of business cards of all his acquaintances. And then he took his business card from the bottom, and then he put it on the top. You could understand. That's my goal, to become the top. So when we think of responsibility, we're thinking, I'm rising, I'm going higher, and therefore it brings a sense of false ego, a sense of control. Ishvaro ham. In Krishna consciousness, responsibility means the responsibility to serve more people. If you're a leader, you have the responsibility to become a bigger servant. If you have power, you have the responsibility to use that power to empower others. Look at Srila Prabhupada. He was so magnanimous. He said, I have 5,000 disciples. All of you should have 10,000. Prabhupada was so humble. In the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam, when Dhruva Maharaj is going back home, back to Godhead, and then before he boards the aeroplane, you know what I mean. I'm on airplanes all the time now. So. He says, no, but where's my mother? He said, no, she's coming, don't worry. And Prabhupada says, I'm preaching all over the world, just in the hope that one of my disciples will become so pure that they take me back to Godhead. I mean, it's inconceivable. So in Krishna consciousness, responsibility means the responsibility to serve, the responsibility to be a better example, the responsibility to give people faith in Krishna consciousness. When you're a leader, you have such an effect on people's faith. It's a razor's edge. But it's so beautiful, because if we're able to do that appropriately, people will flourish in their faith. And then they'll fly in Krishna consciousness. So like this, we always remember that those who take the biggest responsibilities have the biggest responsibilities to be a servant. Is that okay? Yeah.
Maybe 2 more questions.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. We feel very fortunate to be sitting here in the midst of you, hearing from you personally. And it's very refreshing to hear how you fan the spark about taking responsibility for Krishna. Oftentimes, I've noticed that when we take responsibility, we get so preoccupied with anxiety. And the best anxiety comes up when we're chanting our rounds. So
the biggest anxiety comes.
So how do we balance that? That when we are, trying to do one service for Krishna, that we don't get, deviated by another anxiety.
Yeah. Some years ago, I went to Vrindavan, and before I going there, Kadamakananda Maharaj, he told me, you should go and see Brahmananda Prabhu. We don't know how many years he'll be here for. You should go and take his blessings and hear from him. So on that trip to Vrindavan, we went to see Brahmananda Prabhu. And it was incredible. For 4 hours he was talking to us about Srila Prabhupada. And then at the end of it, I said, Brahmananda Prabhu, out of all the services that Srila Prabhupada gave you, which one was the hardest? And he thought for some time, and then he looked at me and he said, chanting 16 rounds attentively. I said, you've been to Pakistan, you've been to like so many places. He said, no, chanting 16 rounds. Our mind is all over the place, and sometimes when we take extra anxiety, we feel like it affects our sadhana. One thing I do want to share with you, just as a precursor to addressing your question, is that Srila Prabhupada does write in one letter that if you don't have good sadhana, if you don't have good hearing and chanting, then all your responsibilities in devotional service will begin to feel like a big burden. And I'm happy you raised this point, because I'd like to also raise that point today, that here as I share with you the importance of taking responsibility, we should also understand that with that we have to increase our absorption in hearing and chanting. Otherwise, at some point we will begin to feel, why am I doing all of this? I could have an easier life. But yes, sometimes it's difficult. Like I said, like I gave the story, rupee. Thinking about money, thinking about people, thinking about all the other things going on. And sometimes it hijacks our ability to just be with Krishna. Shall I tell you an amazing thing? Yeah. I don't know if you want to know this. If tomorrow you would be relieved of all of those responsibilities, and you would buy a ticket to Vrindavan to chant under the trees of Tir Kadamba, with no responsibility on your head, maybe, just maybe, you may find that with all that open space, you still can't remember Krishna. Maybe, just maybe, we might find that when we don't have all of those anxieties for Krishna, then when we're chanting, we'll be thinking about whether India won the World Cup or what there'll be for prasadam. And then we think, maybe it's a step up to at least have anxiety about my service when I'm chanting. Maybe that's an improvement. But then later on, an improvement beyond that is to say to Krishna, Krishna, I want to connect to you. I want to love you. I want to sincerely be close to you so that I can do this service for you. So we are on a progression. So yes, let us try to focus on our rounds. Let us try in those moments of the day. We try and have a rule. For the first 3 hours of the day, don't touch your device. For the first 3 hours of the day, don't try and deal with the affairs of this world. For those hours, just try to be internal, be with Krishna. And it's hard. But we keep trying to reorientate ourselves in that way. I tell people, join the 5 a.m. club. And once you've joined the 5 a.m. club, the 9 a.m. reality is bearable. But if you don't join the 5 a.m. club, then the 9 a.m. reality will become the 12 p.m. catastrophe. So we have to. It's tough, I know. But if we don't have anxiety, we'll be thinking about some other material thing. That's the reality for most of us. But at the same time, don't overburden yourself. Srila Prabhupada also writes in one letter, he says, you should not take on so much that you lose your peace of mind. So we also have to know the boundaries. One devotee said to Prabhupada, I want to go and preach in the nightclub. Prabhupada said, very good, make sure you come back. No, but that was Abhimanyu's problem, isn't it? He knew how to penetrate the phalanx and fight heroically. But what he didn't know is how to come out. So yes, we have to be balanced. And it's the $64 million question, how to find balance in our life. And maybe one day I'll be able to share the answer with you. Until then, we keep trying. The balancing act.
One last question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm so happy to see you here. The thing is, I've been watching your videos. That time I didn't know who you are or something like that. I'm a neophyte devotee. I randomly watched all the videos. Once I saw that one video, I thought, oh, this is the person giving some today's questions running through my mind, that's the kind of connectivity I saw that, I prayed, I want to get the opportunity to meet Svayam Maharaj, I went through your next thing, I went through, so what this Maharaj, all the stories, you are...
Did a background criminal check on him. This guy hasn't got a criminal record or something,
No. The thing is, I heard, you become this spiritual path at the early age, 21st or something like that. So how strong this decision, something like that, Then I prayed, I want to meet something. 2 days back, I came to from my wife, there is an opportunity you mentioned to me. Here I am now. So I want to tell thank you to you and thank you to Prabhuji giving opportunity. And I thought to ask 2 questions, but one of the questions you already said, there is no answer, balancing the life. And one more question, the thing is how to control the monkey mind. So monkey mind is myself. When I am in the spiritual class, okay, I want to do it this way, that way, set up some things, changing one by one or something like that. So when we go to the regular material activities, again it's going to be overriding the things, busy with other things. I want to see going to the temple, meeting the devotees, general answers, okay, association with the devotees, and sometimes we see some positives there, some negatives there. It's a confusion stage. So how to stick it to one path, okay, which can control all this monkey things and balancing the growth activities.
Wow.
Sorry, Maharaj.
Prabhu, you asked this question in the last 2 minutes of the talk. My monkey mind isn't coming up with the answer at the moment. What can we say? Srila Prabhupada has given us a whole process. Yes, our mind is very agitated. What can we do? First thing is we have to try to live in sattva. Try to live in the mode of goodness in all your habits. Then always try to have Vaishnavas around you who are keeping you on track, who are keeping you focused. Then have good sadhana. Calm the mind, connect the mind to Krishna first thing in the morning. What can I say, Prabhu? I don't have any new magic answers. We have to surrender to the process. I'm not telling you anything here which is new. There's no magic formula. The magic formula has already been given. But we have to apply ourselves to it. And see that, yes, you have a long way to go. We all have a long way to go. But see that you have already progressed. You have changed, isn't it? Is your monkey mind as active as it was 5 years ago?
I'm still fighting.
Still fighting. But it's better.
New things.
New things, new monkeys. But overall it's better. So let us appreciate that by the grace of Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas we've been given this process. Then utsahan, nishchayat, dhairyat. You have to be patient, enthusiastic, always apply yourself. And with time, the monkey mind will become the monk mind.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Haribol.